She stepped into her apartment just before midnight, still holding the small cake she had bought for herself. It had already gone cold. Her phone was silent, too silent, no messages, no calls. But somewhere else, her family was raising a toast, just not for her. Ava Collins stood in the middle of the dark living room for a long moment. The soft yellow light stretched across the wooden floor, pulling her shadow long and thin, like a crack splitting something open. Her bag slipped from her shoulder, landing on the couch. She didn't notice. 33 years old, a marketing director that others envied. The woman behind a campaign that had just driven 40% revenue growth in a single quarter, and tonight she came home to a cake she bought herself on a birthday no one remembered. She placed the cake on the table. A single candle stood in the center, unlit, small, lonely, just like her and her own family. Ava picked up her phone again. Nothing. Her thumb hesitated for a second, then opened social media. And just like that, everything collapsed. There he was, Ethan, her brother. Perfect suit, perfect smile. Their parents stood beside him. Her father's hand rested proudly on his shoulder. Her mother leaned close, glowing as if everything in the world was exactly where it should be. Behind them, a large banner hung across the wall. "Congratulations on your promotion," posted a few hours ago, on her birthday. Ava didn't scroll. She just stared, as if she looked long enough, she might find herself somewhere in those photos. But she didn't. She never had. The memories came back quietly, uninvited. At 12, she sat alone at a restaurant table, watching the candle melt into her cake. Her family had promised they would be back after Ethan's debate competition. They never came back. At 18, she was sent to her aunt's house for her birthday weekend, so her parents could take Ethan on a college tour. "It's his future," her father had said without looking at her. Her graduation day, top of her class. But the celebration dinner turned into Ethan's engagement discussion within minutes. Venues, guests, plans, every eye on him, and her just someone sitting there. Ava slowly closed her phone. A soft laugh escaped her lips, but there was no joy in it. They didn't forget. They just never saw her as something worth remembering. An email notification appeared on her screen. She opened it out of habit, then paused. Her bonus, $82,000, a number she once believed could change everything, but right now it just sat there, cold, empty, meaningless. Her phone rang. Her mother's name lit up the screen. Ava's chest tightened for a brief moment, a reflex she hadn't unlearned yet. She answered. Her mother's voice came through, light and cheerful, as if continuing a conversation that had never been interrupted. "Ava, are you there? I was just about to call you. Next month is Ethan and his wife's anniversary. I was thinking you could help out a bit. Decorations, maybe organizing the event. You're so good at those things." Ava said nothing. On the other end, her mother kept talking. Not a single mention of today. Right then, the clock on the wall struck midnight. Her birthday was officially over. "Mom," Ava's voice was soft but no longer gentle. "Today is my birthday." A pause. Short, too short. "Oh," her mother responded as if recalling something minor. "I'm sorry, honey. We've just been so busy with Ethan lately. It slipped my mind." It slipped her mind. Two simple words. Light, effortless, cruel. Ava looked at the cake again, the candle still unlit. Something inside her shifted, not loud, not explosive, but certain, like a door quietly closing. "Don't worry," she said. "I understand." And for the first time in her life, she truly did. Not her place in the family, but the fact that she no longer wanted one. 4 days later, Ava sat in front of her computer, her hands resting on the keyboard, but unable to type a single word. It wasn't because the work was difficult, but because what she had just read had answered every question she had spent years avoiding. She was never part of the family group chat, but one accidental invitation, one wrong tap, and a door that had always been closed suddenly opened. Everything was there, clear, undeniable. Weeks of messages, familiar tones, but this time there was no filter, no polite voice, no softened edges, only the truth. Her father had written that Ava should contribute significantly to Ethan's anniversary gift, at least $20,000. A pause. Then her mother replied that she had just received a bonus. It was time she did something for the family. Not her name, not Ava, not even a person, just a resource. Ava sat still, not blinking, not breathing deeply, as if any movement might shatter something fragile inside her. Her fingers scrolled down. Another message. Ethan had sent a guest list, names she recognized instantly. People Ava had spent years building relationships with. No asking, no permission, just taking, as if it were expected. Another message appeared, her mother asking lightly whether her name was spelled with one, N, or two. A relative answered, probably one. One. Ava let out a laugh, this time clearer, but empty. 33 years, and they still weren't sure how to spell her name. She leaned back in her chair, the Seattle skyline stretching beyond the glass, afternoon sunlight reflecting off tall buildings, shimmering like a perfect world. Inside this room, Ava was the decision maker, the one leading campaigns worth millions of dollars, trusted by clients, protected by executives. Outside, in her own family, she didn't even have the right name. Her phone vibrated. Lena appeared at the door without knocking, stepping in like she always did, bringing the energy Ava often lacked. "Are you okay?" Ava turned the screen toward her. Lena read, her brows tightening slowly. "This is the third time," she said. "Your brother used your connections without asking." Ava didn't respond. Lena studied her more closely, "And they want you to give money too." "Not want," Ava said quietly. "Expect." Silence followed. Lena sat on the edge of the desk. "What have they ever done for you?" It was a simple question, but this time Ava couldn't avoid it, not because she didn't want to answer, but because she couldn't find an answer at all. The desk phone blinked. An incoming call. Ethan. Ava stared at the screen for a few seconds, then picked up. Her voice was calm, professional, the same tone she used with clients. "What do you need?" Ethan didn't hesitate. He needed her to connect him with the marketing director at North Stream for a dinner the next night, an important potential client. A brief pause, then he added, "Family helps each other." Ava closed her eyes. Family, the word always used like a key, opening every door, erasing every boundary. She opened her eyes again. "I'll see what I can do." No commitment, no explanation, just that. She ended the call before he could say anything else. That afternoon, Ava didn't go home right away. She stopped on the third floor, at a familiar apartment. The door opened before she could knock. Mr. Howard stood there, smiling as if he had been expecting her. "Right on time, like always," he said. The smell of freshly baked cookies drifted out. Warm. Real. Ava stepped inside, sat down at the small table, with its old but clean checkered cloth. For 3 years, every Tuesday evening had been like this. She brought food, he brought stories, an unspoken agreement, but today felt different. He looked at her carefully. "You look like someone who just realized something she has known for a long time." Ava lowered her gaze to her hands. "I think I've always been trying to prove something," she said. He nodded. "To whom?" Ava didn't answer immediately, then she said softly, "To people who have never really seen me." "Mr." Howard didn't respond. He simply placed a cookie in front of her. "Some people," he said slowly, "don't see you. Not because you are not clear enough, but because they never wanted to look." That sentence stayed with Ava all the way home. That night, she stood in front of her apartment door, key in hand, but didn't unlock it right away. Inside was the space she had built for herself. Outside was the truth she had finally accepted, and somewhere between those two worlds, a decision was forming. This time, not to please anyone, but to protect herself. On Saturday night, the Collins house was glowing with light. Everything looked the same as always, elegant, flawless, and cold in a way that felt painfully familiar. Ava stood at the door for a few seconds before stepping inside. her hand tightening slightly around the strap of her bag, not because she was afraid, but because she knew that from this moment on, nothing would be the same again. The door opened. Her mother stood in the hallway, adjusting a vase. She looked up and gave a nearly perfect smile. "Ava, you're here." No hug, no question, just an acknowledgement. Her father stood in the living room with a glass of wine in his hand. Ethan and his wife sat on the sofa, looking like a picture from a perfect family advertisement. No one mentioned the call from a few days ago. No one mentioned her birthday. Everything moved forward as if nothing had happened. Dinner began. Her father spoke most of the time, his voice steady, confident, as if every story revolved around a single center: Ethan, his new achievements, new connections, new opportunities. Her mother added small details: the right compliments at the right moments, the perfectly timed nods. Ava sat there quietly, pushing a piece of fish around her plate without eating. She knew what was coming. And it came. Right after dessert. "Ava." Her father set his glass down, the sound soft but enough to draw every eye to him. "We need to discuss your contribution to Ethan's anniversary celebration." No hesitation, no option. Just a request presented as something obvious. $20,000 should cover the venue and catering, he continued. "Given your current financial situation, that is entirely reasonable." Her mother nodded gently. "Family supports each other, dear." That sentence again, but this time Ava didn't hear it the same way. She lifted her head, not rushing, not avoiding. "I can't." The words fell onto the table like something heavy. No one reacted immediately. Perhaps they had never imagined that possibility. Her father frowned, not because he didn't hear, but because he wasn't used to being refused. "What did you say?" he asked again, his voice lower. "I can't contribute $20,000, Ava said clearly. "That is a large portion of what I have, and I have other plans for it." The air in the room shifted, as if the temperature had dropped. Her mother placed a hand on her chest. Her eyes softened instantly. Her voice slowed, trembling slightly. "After everything this family has done for you." Ava looked at her, for the first time not avoiding that gaze. "What has this family done for me?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Silence followed, heavy and long. Her father stood up abruptly, his chair scraping sharply against the floor. He didn't shout, but his voice was enough to make the room tighten. "I will not tolerate ingratitude in this house." He looked straight at her. "Your brother is carrying this family's reputation. You should feel responsible to support him." Every word precise, exact. Just like everything he had said to her entire life. Ava stood up, slowly, but firmly. "I need to leave." Her mother immediately stepped forward, her hand touching Ava's arm, light but holding her back. "Ava, don't make this worse." Her voice dropped, like a warning, just like every time before. But this time, Ava didn't stop. She gently removed her mother's hand, not forceful, not angry, just no longer accepting. She walked toward the door. No one stopped her. No one called her name. Only the sound of her footsteps echoed across the wooden floor, clear and final. The door closed behind her, the sound not loud, but enough to end something that had lasted for more than 30 years. Outside, the air was cool. Ava walked quickly to her car, her hands trembling slightly as she opened the door. She sat down and closed it. Silence surrounded her. No voices, no eyes, just her, and a strange feeling. Not relief, not happiness, but clarity. As if a part of her had finally awakened. She placed her hands on the steering wheel and took a deep breath. For the first time in her life, she had said no. And even though everything ahead was still uncertain, she knew one thing: she would never return to that place again. 3 weeks after that night, Ava sat alone in a small cafe on the corner of a quiet street. In front of her was a half-eaten slice of carrot cake, and beside it, her laptop sat open, but the screen had gone dark at some point. She wasn't working. She wasn't even trying to. She just sat there and watched. At the table next to her, A group of friends gathered around a young woman wearing a paper crown. She was smiling brightly. They sang, they clapped, they handed her gifts, and one voice rose above the rest: "Make a wish." The girl closed her eyes and blew out the candles. Laughter followed, easy, natural, effortless. Ava watched them for a long time, and something inside her slowly settled. It wasn't jealousy, it wasn't sadness. It was acceptance. She would never have that with her family, not because she wasn't good enough, but because they had never looked at her that way. Her fingers moved to the keyboard. Without overthinking, she typed, "Oregon beachfront house." The results appeared instantly. The first image opened: a wooden house, wide windows facing the ocean, an open yard, pine trees standing quietly behind it. It wasn't luxurious, it wasn't impressive, but it was peaceful. Ava scrolled down, the price, $365,000. She looked at the number, then back at the images. A thought formed, small, but clear. She didn't close the laptop. She placed her hand flat on the table, took a deep breath, and for the first time in years, she didn't think about asking anyone. The next morning, she called a realtor, her voice calm. "I want to see this house." 2 days later, Ava stood on an old wooden deck, staring out at the endless ocean. The wind moved through her hair, the scent of salt filled each breath. The realtor was speaking behind her, about location, about potential, about the market, but Ava didn't hear most of it. She stepped closer to the edge of the deck, looking down at the gentle waves meeting the shore. There was no noise, no expectations, no one asking her to become anything other than herself, just her, and a space that belonged to no one else. She turned around. "I'll take it." The realtor hesitated, slightly surprised. "Don't you want to think about it more? Maybe bring your family to see it?" Ava shook her head. No. She didn't explain. She didn't need to. 3 days later, she signed the papers in a small office, each signature placed down slowly, firmly. No one sat beside her. No one gave advice. No one objected. Just her and her decision. Mr. Howard came with her that day. He didn't say much, just stood beside her like he always did. When Ava received the keys, he gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "Sometimes," he said, "we have to build our own place to belong." Ava didn't respond, but this time, she understood. In the days that followed, she spent her weekends at the new house. Not rushing, not trying to make it perfect, just one step at a time. She cleaned the floors, repainted the walls, installed each light. She hung up photos she had never had a place for before: her graduation, her first major contract, a photo of her standing with her team, genuinely smiling. Not moments her family created, but moments she created for herself. The master bedroom became her favorite place: a chair by the window facing the ocean, a small bookshelf, and a wooden sign she hung on the door: "Birthday room." She stood there for a few seconds after hanging it, not smiling, not crying, just feeling something unfamiliar, something full. One Sunday evening, Ava sat on the floor of the new house, her laptop resting on her lap. She typed a few lines, an invitation, a small gathering, not big, not extravagant, just for the people who had truly been there for her. Lena's name, a few colleagues, Mr. Howard. Her fingers paused as the list neared completion. An empty space, where other names should have been, her family. She looked at the screen for a long time, then pressed send. She didn't add anyone else. She didn't edit it. She didn't explain. As the email went out, something inside her shifted as well, not loud but steady. That night, Ava sat outside on the deck as the sky darkened, the ocean reflecting the moonlight. Her phone was inside the house, silent, and it didn't need to ring. For the first time in her life, Ava wasn't waiting for anyone to call, and for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she belonged. The door opened, and Ava stepped inside as if she were walking into a trial she had been waiting for her entire life. She was no longer the daughter coming home, no longer the one trying to please. This time, she came prepared, holding 3 photo albums tightly in her arms. Her father stood in the living room, the same familiar posture, back straight, eyes controlled. Her mother was already seated at the dining table, tissues placed neatly beside her, as if she had expected to need them. Ethan stood near the window, quieter than usual. No one asked what she had brought, but all of them looked at the albums. Dinner began, the air heavy. No one really eating. Her father spoke first, saying they needed to resolve this situation, his voice still firm, but something was missing this time: control. Her mother continued, saying that what Ava had been doing was causing misunderstandings, buying a house without telling them, posting those things. People were starting to ask questions. Ava did not respond immediately. She set her bag down, took out the first album, and placed it on the table, saying they would start from there. Her father frowned, saying they did not have time for this, and Ava cut him off, telling him to make time. Her voice was not loud, but it was enough to silence the entire table. She opened the first album, page after page, revealing Ethan's birthdays, year after year, large cakes, rows of candles, piles of gifts, family photos filled with smiles and pride, no year missing. She pushed the album toward Ethan and told him to look. He didn't want to, but he did. His fingers slowed on one page, his 18th birthday, a new car with a large ribbon, their father handing him the keys, their mother crying with pride. Ava didn't stop. She opened the second album and slid it toward her mother, saying this one was hers. Her mother opened it to blank pages, a few scattered photos, a small cake, Ava alone, one rare photo with Mr. Howard beside her, no family, no one, nothing to fill the pages. Ava spoke softly, saying it was not because she didn't have birthdays, but because no one was there to take pictures. No one said anything. The air thickened. She opened the third album, trips, Disney, Europe, beach vacations, family photos without her. She said she wasn't there because she had been at someone else's house, or at camp, or told there wasn't enough space. Her father stood up abruptly and said that was enough, his voice hard, asking what her point was. Ava looked directly at him and said the truth. She pulled out another stack of papers, a record of family spending, money invested in Ethan, tuition, gifts, cars, vacations, and placed it on the table, then pointed out the numbers on her side. Smaller, clear, needing no explanation. Her mother began to cry, this time real tears, saying they didn't mean to, that it just happened. Ava nodded slightly and said it became a pattern. A long silence followed. Ethan still said nothing, his eyes fixed on a photo at the edge of the table, him at 8 surrounded by gifts, and in the corner, a 6-year-old girl standing behind, smiling, but her eyes were not. Ava, he said quietly, the first time he called her like that, not to ask, not to request, just to call her name. Ava did not respond. She stood up, gathered the papers, but left the 3 albums behind. She said she didn't need answers anymore, didn't need apologies, didn't need change. She looked at each of them slowly, clearly, and said she only needed one thing, then paused before saying she was no longer there to wait. Her mother broke into sobs. Her father said nothing. Ethan remained standing as if held in place by something he did not fully understand. Ava turned away and walked toward the door, not rushing, not stopping. Her hand touched the doorknob, and behind her, her mother's voice called out, "Ava, please." She paused for a second, did not turn back, then opened the door and stepped outside. The door closed behind her, softly but decisively. Inside that house, for the first time, no one was in control of the story anymore. And outside, for the first time, Ava walked forward without carrying any expectation from them. 1 year later, the morning sunlight stretched across the wooden deck, reflecting on the ocean like a quiet mirror. Ava stood in that space, gently arranging a small table. Fresh fruit, a few glasses, and a cake larger than any she had ever bought for herself before. 33 candles stood evenly across the surface. Not one, 33, not a single year missing. The door behind her opened, Lena stepped out, holding 2 glasses of orange juice. Do you need help? Ava shook her head and smiled. I'm okay. This time, she meant it. The space slowly warmed as people began to arrive, colleagues, friends, the ones who had stayed without asking her to prove anything. Laughter filled the air, light, natural, effortless, no performance, no roles, just real people. Lena raised her glass and said, "Happy birthday, Ava," to the girl who finally learned how to choose herself. Everyone followed, glasses touching, the sound clear and bright. Ava stood there, looking around, feeling each moment without needing to hold on to it, because this time she was truly inside it. Her phone vibrated softly in her pocket. A message. Happy birthday. Congratulations on your new position. She had been promoted just the day before, a major step forward, but it was no longer the most important thing. A car door closed outside, a familiar sound. Ava turned. Ethan stood at the edge of the yard, holding a gift box, his eyes no longer carrying the same confidence. No one spoke. The air shifted slightly. He walked toward her, slowly. I'm sorry for coming without telling you, he said. I just wanted to give this to you in person. Ava looked at him, not angry, not distant, just calm. Come in. The answer surprised even her, but she didn't take it back. The party continued, but at the edge of the deck, Ava and Ethan sat facing the ocean. The box rested between them. Ethan spoke first, saying he had gone to see someone, a therapist. Ava didn't react immediately. He smiled slightly, uncertain, saying they called it favoritism in the family. He paused, admitting he had never seen it until she put everything on the table. Ava looked out at the ocean, the waves steady, unhurried. He pushed the box toward her. Open it. Inside was a photograph, old, restored. A little girl around 7 years old sitting on a worn swing, her hair lifted gently by the wind, smiling for real. Just her, no one beside her, no one cut out of the frame. Ethan said quietly that he had found it in their father's storage. Ava held the photo, her fingers lightly touching the edge. A memory that had not been edited. A version of her that existed without needing anyone to confirm it. A knock sounded from inside the house. Ava stood. Through the glass, she saw her mother standing there alone, holding a small box. No controlled expression, no performance, just hesitation. Ethan stood behind her, saying nothing. Ava walked to the door and opened it. Her mother held out the box, her voice soft. Happy birthday. Inside was a small cake, carrot flavor, something Ava used to love. A small detail, but for the first time, remembered correctly. Ava didn't speak right away. She looked at her mother for a long moment, then stepped aside. The party is almost over, she said. You can stay for a while if you want. Her mother nodded gently. No one hugged, no dramatic tears, just a small step, but a real one. Night slowly fell. People began to leave. The space returned to quiet. Ava stepped out onto the deck and sat down in the familiar chair. The ocean was dark now, but not frightening, just deep. Her phone lit up. A message from Mr. Howard asking if she had enjoyed her day. Ava smiled and replied that for the first time, she truly had a birthday. She set the phone down and looked ahead. No more waiting, no more proving, just a steady sense of being. She lifted her glass slightly and whispered, "Congratulations." Not to anyone else, but to herself. If you have ever had to learn how to stand alone, so you would not be left behind, leave a comment. If this story touched you, press like. And if you are on your own journey of choosing yourself, stay. There are more stories to come. If this story felt close to your heart, you are not alone. Many people are learning, just like Ava, that choosing yourself is not selfish, it is necessary. If you have ever been overlooked, underestimated, or made to feel invisible, take this moment as your reminder that your story still matters. Leave a comment and share what you are choosing for yourself today. Like this video to support more real-life emotional stories, and subscribe so you do not miss the next journey. Because sometimes, The most powerful decision you will ever make is choosing yourself.